Hello, and this is the audio lecture on Chapter 1 from our Nye text, the first of these sorts of lectures that you'll have over the course of the semester. I'll do one of these for each one of the text chapters that we read out of our textbook, Technology Matters. And the first chapter's title is Can We Define Technology? We are treating definitions of technology this week, and in this chapter, Nye, as the introductory chapter for the textbook, talks about a variety of different things related to the idea of technology and definitions of technology. I'm not sure that he ever really sort of settles on a particular definition of technology, though, or sort of says, in the end, this is how technology is defined. So you probably shouldn't really look for that per se. But he does talk about quite a number of different concepts related to the idea of technology, and I'm going to talk about a few of those and sort of prepare you for those when you encounter them in the text. And so you should be listening to this and viewing this lecture before you read the chapter in the Nye text, chapter 1. And so, as I said, one of the things, or the main thing I'm going to be doing in this lecture, as well as in the lectures for each of the chapters, is just talking about a few of the ideas and providing an overview of a few of the ideas that Nye talks about, and sort of preparing you in a variety of ways, one of which is to give you information that you may need to have and may not already sort of have an understanding of for reading the particular chapter. And one of the things that Nye talks about in the beginning part of the chapter is the issue of technology and tool use, or tool use being a key part of our understanding of what technology is. And when he's talking about tools here, he's talking about a broader sense than we sometimes use the word tool. He's talking about a broader sense than just tools that we might use to build something, or that you might find in the toolbox in your basement or in your garage. This is sort of a definition that I found on dictionary.com of tool, one of many definitions of tool, but one that I think is a good one, in the sense that Nye is talking about tool, and that we are and will be talking about tool over the course of the semester. Here, a tool is anything that is used as a means of accomplishing a task or a purpose. And so technology involves tool use in this sort of most basic sense. And there are all sorts of ways in which we as humans use tools. We have tools for communication, we have tools for a variety of different things that we do in our daily life. There are tools used for manufacturing and creating various sorts of products. There are tools for learning, many of which you are taking advantage of through the desire to learn interface and so forth. So it is the somewhat broader sense of the concept of tool that Nye is using in this chapter and the text as a whole, and that we will be using this week and in the course as a whole. Um, Following on his discussion of technology and tool use, Nye talks a little bit about Nye talks a little bit about the idea or the relationship between technology and necessity. And one of the things he does here is quote a Spanish philosopher named Jose Ortega y Gasset. Ortega y Gasset was a Spanish philosopher in the early to mid 20th century. And the quote by Ortega y Gasset refers to technology as the production of superfluities. This is one of the ways in which Ortega y Gasset describes or characterizes technology. And I just wanted to point this out to make sure that you understood what is meant by the term superfluities. Um, if you think of a similar term that you probably have heard of before, which is the word superfluous, it's that word superfluous is related to the word superfluities. And if you think about what the meaning of the term superfluous is, um, you probably, if you're familiar with that word, know that it means something that's sort of extra. If something is superfluous, that means that it's not really needed, it's extra, and so the way in which Ortega y Gasset characterizes technology as the production of superfluities means that to a great extent, technology does not involve really true necessity or true things that are needed for survival, but rather building things and creating things that are really more than what we need. You know, if think about just the roles of technology in your daily life, a lot of it involves things that, strictly speaking, we really don't need and would be able to, if we had to, do fine without them. And so this is the way in which Ortega y Gasset and Nye, quoting Ortega y Gasset, is meaning when they're talking about superfluities. And then another quote or another passage related to technology and necessity. Nye cites the axiom or the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And of course, that term, phrase, or that saying, phrased that way, means that something is needed. We as humans need something, and so that sort of motivates the invention of something to fulfill the need that we have. And that idea is one that has long been behind the process, or thought to be behind the process of invention. That things are invented at the point in human history when a need is felt for them. But one of the things that Nye tries to do there is sort of flip that on its head and say that there's probably just as many times, or there has been just as many times in history, where the need for something was not really there yet, but it was invented anyways. And he uses that term, or the saying, invention is the mother of necessity, meaning here something is invented, but there really isn't a need for it yet, and so the use to which it is put, or the need so called that it meets, is not realized, or is not felt until after the thing is invented. And so that's um, one of the things that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to is social aspects of technology, and how a lot of things are created or invented not because there's a need for it, but because there's a particular social set of circumstances in social history at a given time that led to its invention. In one section of Chapter 1, Nye goes into some detail talking about Stonehenge, and I just wanted to spend a moment sort of explaining and perhaps reminding many of you who are aware of it what Stonehenge is Stonehenge is the collection of rock structures that looks like this. It's located in England, and it has long been speculated as to what the exact purposes of Stonehenge was. And it's generally believed now that Stonehenge was used sort of as some sort of a sundial almost that came into play at the summer solstice and the winter solstice, and the the civilization that existed in England at that time utilized what really must have been, had to have been, some pretty advanced technology for that time, which was in the, I think, around 5 or 600 A.D., in which they constructed Stonehenge for the purposes of being able to track the solstices. And there's another image of what remains of Stonehenge from an aerial view. Um, Most of you probably have heard of Stonehenge before. Some of you maybe had not. And in either case, I wanted to provide a couple of pictures of it to remind you or show you for the first time what it looked like, and talk a little about what the purpose of it is before you read those parts of chapter 1 in which Nye talks about Stonehenge. Another big section of chapter 1 deals with the relationship between technology and narrative. Now, narrative, of course, is basically means storytelling or stories. And the way that this relates to technology is that narrative is usually involves some sort of a sequence of events. And so um, Nye talks about how various forms of technology involve a sequence of events as well. Using a particular type of tool in either the broad or the narrower sense involves a sequence of things that you have to go through. Nye also talks about in a narrative, if we're hearing a story or watching a story in visual form, we don't know how it's going to end until we see what the ending is. There's a variety of potential endings that could take place. And so that is the same way when certain forms of technology are used. Tools are used in particular ways to fulfill some sort of a need that exists to accomplish a task, and there's a variety of different ways in which that task might be completed, or the results of going through that task or going about that task, and that is one of the ways in which narrative relates to technology. And so tool use is talked about as being narrative in nature as well. Because one of the things that we have to do when we use tools or when we engage in tool use is we have to recall the sequence of events that are necessary to use that tool. We have to think of the steps that need to be taken in order to do the task for which that tool is utilized. You can think of it maybe in terms of a new piece of furniture, say a table that you have bought and you have to assemble. You have these instructions that are the steps or the sequence of events, and the narrative in this case is you start off with a pile of parts and you follow the sequence of events or the steps, and at the end of the narrative you have an assembled table. And so those are a few of the ways in which uh, technology and narrative have a very close relationship, and which Nye goes into in some greater detail in chapter 1. I am always a big fan of looking at the etymology of different words to sort of figure out, where do words come from. Etymology is sort of the origins of words, or the evolution of the structure of a word or the usage of a word. And so this is one of the things that a good portion of chapter 1 is dealing with as well. In trying to define technology, Nye talks about the origins of the word technology. And there's a couple of foreign words that you can see here, the Greek word techne and the German word technique, which are sort of precursors of the word technology. The Greek word techne, both of these have got a little bit different senses than what we uh, understand the word technology to mean now. And the Greek word techne, ancient Greek word, techne, meant skill in the arts. So if somebody had techne, they had some skill or were exhibiting some skill in usually what was called the useful arts or the mechanical arts. And technique, the German word technique, referred to the system of different things that were used in the mechanical arts, the procedures, the different types of tools and apparatuses that were used, and all of these sorts of things. And these two um, words contributed both to the just the formation of the word technology and the meaning of the word technology as we know it today. And that meaning, technology, with the meaning that we have today for it, became common only in about the 1930s. There was a long evolution of the word itself in terms of its form, as well as the different meanings of the word technology that Nye goes into some detail about in chapter 1. Another section of the chapter talks about technology and science, and just a couple of things to touch upon here. There's some misunderstanding that has taken place, fairly widespread, in terms of the relationship between technology and science, and this is a misunderstanding of technology as applied science. Technology is sometimes referred to as applied science. In other words, the principles of science and the knowledge that is gained through science is applied, the somewhat theoretical knowledge that is sometimes gained by science is applied in practical situations. And that is one way in which technology has been described or understood. But Nye claims that that is a misunderstanding because there's a great many technologists or inventors, people involved in developing a variety of technologies that were not scientific in nature. They were not scientists. They didn't, in many cases, even really understand what the scientific bases are, or the scientific principles behind the technologies that they were inventing or the technologies that they were um, perfecting. And so it's important to sort of understand exactly what that relationship is between technology and science. And then the final thing is relating to technology and gender. Nye talks in a short section near the end of the chapter about how the understanding that we do have of technology that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century usually involved a marginalization of females as being participants in the development and practice of technology. And you can read in the chapter exactly what Nye says about that, but I wanted to highlight it here basically to point out that our exploration of technology that we are going to be doing in this class in relationship to the humanities or through the filter or using the approach of the humanities is going to have a cultural basis as much as anything else. We're going to be studying social aspects of technology. We're going to be studying historical aspects of technology. And we're going to be studying some of the cultural aspects of technology. We're not going to be really talking in great depth about, specific technical things related to technology. We are going to be taking a look at it um, through these lenses that are related to the humanities, in which we're going to be talking about culture and society and various historical components of technology. The very last paragraph of the chapter, as a transition sort of to chapter 2, Nye talks about or introduces the concept of technological determinism. Technological determinism. And that is something that I will be talking about in some detail, a good part of this sort of lecture for next week on Chapter 2. We'll talk about that idea of technological determinism. And so now that you have listened to this, go on and do the reading of Chapter 1 using the reading guide that you can get in the coursework for this week, and let me know if you have any questions related to Chapter 1.